Hello and welcome to Good Show, the podcast helping you answer one of the most daunting questions in television. What am I watching next? I'm Brandon Sharp.
And I'm Anthony Mako.
And on this episode of Good Show, we are discussing Slow Horses. This spy thriller opens on River, an up-and-coming hotshot MI5 agent in the throes of a high-intensity mission that we later learn is a training exercise. Now, I'm going to have to spoil the outcome of the training exercise in order to set up the rest of the show. River makes a large mistake, resulting in a simulated train explosion and the death of everyone on board. This mistake lands River at Slough House, the branch of MI5 reserved for the screw-ups and misfits. Slough House falls under the charge of Jackson Lamb, played by Gary Oldman, a Cold War legend and black sheep of the British intelligence community. And this is where our story begins. Slow Horses was adapted from a series of novels written by Mick Herron and aired on Apple TV Plus for the first time in April of 2022. The show has already been renewed for seasons 3 and 4. And with that, Anthony, let's talk Slow Horses.
Let's do it. Brandon only does shows that are based off books. That's the bottom line.
Those are the best shows, I think.
Are they?
I think it's nice. I think it's nice when you have source material, something to pull from. I feel like it makes a little bit more of a stable. I don't know why it shakes out that way, but the stuff I end up liking the best comes from like a book, usually.
Yeah. Plus, you read a lot of the books, so.
Yeah. But I mean, even like Lord of the Rings, I mean, just all, based on literature or written source material.
Yeah.
Well, if I remember correctly, and I don't know that I do, we found this show separately, right? Were we both in on it kind of separately, or?
No. You're the one that pushed me to watch it. I saw it on Apple TV early on, but I wasn't compelled to watch it until you said, hey, this show's great.
Which seems strange. This definitely seems like something I would watch. Doesn't seem like something I would recommend to someone because this reminds me of like a Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which I love, but I never recommend because it's slow and it's on the boring. I think a lot of people find it boring.
I'll give you that, but it's not
it's not like that.
No, it's not that slow.
Yeah. Well, let's just skip right to it. What kind of show is this?
Certainly spy thriller. And I was actually thinking about, I don't know if you want to talk about this now, but I was actually thinking about how I really, really like spy thrillers set in Britain rather than the United States. And I was trying to think about why that sort of is. And it's almost like the Brits have a way more skeptical view of everything, which is really funny. But the United States always sets up this, like, there's a clear good and a clear bad. And it's usually like somewhere in the neighborhood of military propaganda or something like that, where it's just like, well, obviously the military is good and whoever it is bad.
Spy thrillers created by Americans are drastically different. I think we're going to get into this a little bit later. It might go there, but I think you're exactly right. I think the European spy thrillers have more of the Cold War feels than your Jack Ryans and what have you.
And there's nobody pure in it. Everybody's got a little dirt on them, and so it's just like a lot of maybe the best outcome comes from the least. You admire the person who plays the game the best, not who's the most pure, which is just fun to watch. It wouldn't be fun to live in, but it's fun to watch.
Yeah. It's fun. I mean, it is more about playing the game.
Yeah.
It's more about the spycraft. It's more about the subterfuge. I am personally fascinated by that angle, that stories told like that.
Yeah.
Without a clear right, a clear wrong. It's they live in the gray area.
Yeah, same.
I think they're super compelling. I love Slow Horses, and it ends up probably being my favorite type of spy thriller. But we can tackle that a little more later.
Yeah.
Show looks pretty good though.
Oh,
Apple TV Plus is I mean, they're putting money in their shows. It's pretty obvious.
If there's one thing I've come to trust about Apple TV Plus, it's whatever the show is, it's going to look awesome. I actually, in my quick hits way later on, I've got several of examples of that where it's just like, well, if anything else, this is going to be maybe one of the most beautiful shows I've ever seen. It's just like they're really putting a lot of work into that.
For sure. Well, ensemble cast.
Yep.
Mostly British cast. And I think quite a few unknowns.
Yeah.
Anyone stand out? Any actors stand out to you? Anyone we recognize from anything else?
Well, you are the one asking the question, so I feel bad that you don't get to give this answer because this is your boy. But Gary Oldman is just unbelievably good in this show. And it's his show, sort of like it is ensemble, but he's the main character, I would say, in the show.
Yeah.
And there's a couple main characters, but he's one of the main, and he's just phenomenal, as he always is. So it's not that weird. But is he British? I'm sorry, this is so ignorant of me, but is he British?
Well, you put me on the spot. I've got to say, I mean, I'm 99% sure he is British. Yes, he's British for sure.
Yep, Brit.
Yeah. You know who else is good? The lady that plays Taverner, and she's from Fleabag.
Yep.
She's great. I loved her in Fleabag. She had I don't know, just she had a quality about her in Fleabag. And
she has the same quality in this show too.
Yeah, I think she's really good.
I always, oh man, let's just get weird here, I guess.
There you go.
She's a fair amount older than me, I imagine. But when I watch the show, I'm like, man, that's an attractive woman.
Well, I think that attractiveness really comes through in Fleabag. And there's that really, this is the Fleabag episode apparently, but there's that really good scene between her and
Phoebe.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, I agree. She was like in the original Mission Impossible movie, and she was quite a bit younger then, but she's way better like in some of these later roles that I've seen her in. I really like her a lot.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know. There's all sorts of ways I could probably offend people with that. And I mean, hurt people's feelings, not even I don't usually care about offending. I don't mean like her age is a negative thing. I'm just saying the distance between me and her is large. But still there's something about her to me. And also like, I'm not going to date her. It's just like, but it's some sort of recognition of that's an attractive person who's, and hopefully she is as much older than me as I think she is. I don't know.
I really love Olivia Cook.
Okay.
She was in Ready Player One, the movie.
Yep.
She was in Bates Motel, which is a series I watched like about a decade ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got really into the Norman Bates character for a while, which seems strange to say now, but she was that's the first place I saw her was in the Bates Motel series. And she's been in a few things. She was just in House of Dragon, which is on your docket.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah.
To watch. She's real good in that. Anyway, I'm a big Olivia Cook fan, and she's only in season 1, but she's great in season 1.
Yep.
And the other kind of standout, Jack Lowden plays River Cartwright.
He's great. He's who I was going to say next. Yeah.
He's really good. I think he is a BBC actor. My wife was just watching something and I saw him. So I think he's probably dancing around in some of those other BBC series, but he's really,
and he's sort of, which is a theme in this show, but he's sort of understated, and he might be like number 2 on the billing behind Gary Coleman. I think he probably is the intention of the show.
In some ways, it's like his story being told.
Right, totally.
But
especially because it opens up on him.
Gary Oldman's like Jackson Lamb's clearly like the main character, but
yeah,
the story opens on him, and I feel like he just gets a lot of screen time.
Yep.
You follow his character a lot.
Yep.
So it's in some ways his story, but Gary Oldman looms largely over the entire cast. Yeah, and it's probably worth mentioning here that
the narrative of the show is basically that there's a group of outcast spies in this other house of MI5 that's for whatever reason, like we know, they can't be fired, or we're not firing them, but we're going to put them off on their own. They're not going to have any real responsibility because they've messed up in some way, or they've just annoyed someone, or something like that. We just don't want them in the main thing. I bring that up now to sort of say every one of these main characters is an outcast of some sort, but they're also the heroes of the show. They're the main characters in the show, which I just think is such a fine line to have to walk, but they do it so well. So you have to like the outcastness of each of these characters, and they're outcasts. So there's no reason for you to do that. But they do it so well. And even just like River it's almost like his flaw is that he's too sweet and he's too likable, and there's different things like that. They just found really good ways. And Gary Oldman is so persnickety and grumpy and just like whatever, and he goes so far that you just laugh. Like, he provides the comic relief. So it's like this anti-hero ensemble of spy network. It's just a really interesting line to have to draw, and they do a really, really good job of it.
I think, and I mean, I think it would be an interesting, because this is a question we might get into later a little bit, but who writes stories about the misfit MI5 agents? Everyone wants the story about the top dog, the James Reeses and the Jack Ryans, and they want the best of the best of the best written, reading stories about those guys.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting story being told here. And I think it's a fresh perspective. It's a fresh take on the spy thriller.
Yeah.
And speaking of story, season 1, season 2, compare and contrast a little bit, because I think literally hot and cold for me a little bit.
Oh yeah, 2 is better than 1.
Yeah, that's
okay. Yeah.
Well, as far as like the clip at which it moves on, I think the story is good in both.
I think the story's better in 2 though.
It is better, and it is better.
I think you probably don't notice because of the order it's in. Fortunately, it's in the right order. In that 1 is a step toward 2. I just think 2 is really, really good, and 1 is okay. It's like a bike with training wheels on it for a spy thriller, and then you take the training wheels off for season 2, and it really gets one doesn't feel. 2 is way more intense than 1, which is what you're looking for in a spy thriller.
Yeah, I was thinking today. I flipped on season 1 again. I was thinking, why didn't they start with season 2? Season 1 has an interesting story, I thought. And I was like, this is good. I would have liked this way more after watching season 2.
Oh, interesting. Because it introduced the characters better?
Well, because I would have been familiar with all the characters already. Yeah. I would have been locked into the story. I would have been, familiar of like how the world works a little bit.
Yeah.
Some of that heavy lifting was already done. I don't know, like I really struggled to stay locked in on season 1 when I watched it last year.
Well, yeah.
And the thing is, it's interesting. We were going to do an episode, and I remember texting you like, I'm just not enthusiastic about this at all. And
I think I finished it before you did.
And you were like, then we probably shouldn't. We probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then season 2 happened. I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
I love it. So I mean, I don't know.
There's a lot you learn in 1 though that is good and is certainly helpful for 2. But there's elements of 1 that I don't know if you want to like nail the main narrative in 1, but the main narrative in 1 is probably the problem. Not the problem, but just not as good as the main narrative in 2. There are elements of 1 though, like the interplay between the not agencies, there's the same agency, but the interplay between the two,
the houses,
and the interplay between Diana and Jackson, and how their relationship, and so all of that. If you didn't know that for 2, they don't feed you that as much in 2. You just have to already know it.
Season 2 feels like they actually got a story of their own, like they actually had something to do.
Yeah.
And season 1 feels more like they're spying on the other house, or cleaning up the other house's mess.
Yeah.
Which feels to me more like a season 2 story.
Yeah.
I don't know why it clicked with me today when I was watching. I was like, oh, this just feels like the second layer. Like it's not the grab you story.
Yeah.
It's like, let's dig a little deeper story. Anyway, I'm being nitpicky, but
but the stakes of 2 are much higher than the stakes, in my opinion, are higher than the stakes of 1. So you wouldn't want to go backwards.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that. If there was a way to tell more of a compelling story in 1, and then get more like politicky and nitty gritty with 2.
Yeah.
I think that's my point. I think there was a way. Anyway, 2's better than 1, bottom line, but I think 1 does do some heavy lifting for the series, lay some good groundwork.
I think it's worth mentioning that in like 1 of my favorite things, and I don't think this will be too much of a spoiler. One of my favorite things is that interplay between Jackson and Diana, which is Diana's the head of MI. Well, no. She's not the head of she's high.
She's second chair.
Yeah. Second chair in MI5.
MI5.
And, so technically she's in charge of every, Jackson and his whole outfit, but there's a way, and their back and forth is awesome. And there's like a way in which he's like the slacker who, he's just slacker all around, drinks all the time, and is dirty. And there's all sorts of jokes about how he never showers and all this different stuff. But he's an old school spy. Yeah, he's the best.
He's a burnout. He's not a reject. And or he's not like a screw up. There's a big difference there.
Yes.
He was the best of the best.
Yeah.
As far as like, he wasn't, and I want to be clear here. He wasn't like kicking butt. Like he isn't a spy, like a James Bond spy. Like this is this is someone who was a master of spy craft. And so anyway, he was the best, and he was a burnout.
Yeah.
And I think at one point, Diana explains, why he burned out, because of the crazy stuff he had to do for his country. And anyway, I think they do make a point to, like color in his character adequately. Like you don't just think he's like ripping farts and
right.
Eating noodles real sloppy. Like I do feel like he
does all those things, but
he does all those things. So like you could easily be like, man, this guy's just dirty.
Yeah.
But you could tell he's like a genius also.
Oh yeah. And that's actually a great point to bring up, because one of the beauties of this show is some people are in Slough House because they, screwed something up, like River messed something up. So now he's in Slough House. And then some people are in Slough House because they were just like too good at their job, or they burnt out, or like Christopher Chung's character, Roddy, who is like the techie guy. He's in there because he just wouldn't follow any of the rules, but he's the best techie guy. No doubt. He's better than anyone else has. So
one guy was in there because he was a gambler.
Yes.
Like it literally is, it could have just been anything.
Yeah.
The writing seems exceptional.
Yeah, real good. Yep. Which has to be, if a spy thriller is going to keep you going, it has to be great, and especially in those dry periods.
Story and dialogue for sure.
Yeah,
are like the two big things there. I mean the back and forth between, there's a lot of back and forth between River and Jackson also.
Yep.
Fantastic. That might be my favorite pairing if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
Kind of the young and old, but it's just like this crazy uncle and nephew relationship. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, and there's also a way in which so to keep your attention, the show has to be funny, which it is. It has some funny moments, but it can't be too funny and make the whole thing a joke.
Or make it seem too lighthearted.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And they run that line perfectly. Yeah.
But at the same time, middle of the scene, Gary Oldman rips a big old fart.
And the beauty of his humor that's like that, I think, is he always uses that to his advantage as a spy, which is very interesting. So
like he's bumbling, he acts like he's bumbling, but he's really not.
Yeah. It's not it's something that happens in season 2, but it's not a spoiler at all. But when River goes to that noodle restaurant and he's got the noodle thing, and River bets him whatever it was, like $50 that if this happens, and then he just dry deadpan plays the whole thing off, waits for it to happen, and then pays with so Gary Oldman loses the bet or whatever, and then he pays with Rivers $50 that he had gotten out to show that he was, and he just plays the whole thing perfectly.
Oh yeah,
it's really good. Yeah.
You know, when I win the bet, you're supposed to give me money, right?
Yeah.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah.
Keep the change. So good. So good. I think there is one thing we do see is like a graduating or a growth in the characters between from season 1 to season 2, and the respect. Jackson Lamb is just 100% like just disrespects these people all the time.
Yeah.
It's funny, but at the same time, you're like, good heavens, like take it easy. And I think one thing you really do see him start to rely on them more, start to trust them more.
Yeah.
Think to himself, maybe they do know what they're doing occasionally. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is nice to see, especially after watching season 1. It's nice to see a little bit of growth there.
Yeah.
So,
well, I would also say though, my only beef, I don't know if it's my only beef, but one of my main beefs with the show would be, they do a pretty good job of their spying. And in many cases, it's like, oh, MI5's too red tapey to get anything done. And we're, they're there to investigate this thing. And so it's like, well, they're clearly doing this better than, like, sometimes they do it too well.
Like we mentioned before, these people they were in MI5 at some point.
Right. Yeah.
They are good agents or were good agents. Yeah. They do know how to do something. Because, the way he talks to him in season 1 makes you think this is a group of people that they found off the street.
Right.
They don't know how to tie their own shoes.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that they're like, they washed out, or they could have, like we said before, they could have ended up in Slough House for some small reason. So they do know how to do some stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And there is kind of, some are better than others, but I feel like the main thing is Jackson Lamb is still on top of his game. He's still smarter than everyone. Yeah. And I think when he runs an operation, it's going to be, I don't know, it's just going to be really good work. It's going to be really good television also.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think it works out here. Anything else for the first section?
The only thing is we skipped past characters so fast that I wanted to point out that.
We did?
Well, no. I'm sorry. We didn't skip past it. I never got a chance to bring up Catherine McCormick is in this, and I don't think I had seen her since Spy Game. And so
you're right.
I loved seeing her. That was great. She's in season 2, only. Yeah. But, I was just like, oh man, Spy Game. So
I didn't, know her name, but I did recognize her right away.
Yeah.
And I remember she was in that. And I thought it was interesting that the last thing I saw her in was a spy.
Yeah. Show, as far as I know, I don't know,
spy movie. So, Anthony, we recently released an episode on The White Lotus, and we discussed specifically Jennifer Coolidge and how we felt like her Golden Globe win was undeserving. Our main grievance was that we felt like she plays the same person in everything she does. I think you were a little more gracious here. You said you added, but I haven't seen her in that much stuff. I think I doubled down on that and was, pretty driving the point home there. And we actually then went on and we released like a clip of it and kind of highlighted it a little bit. Let me tell you the finish line here, just so you know that I'm going in someplace useful. And that I'm going to tie this to the actual Slow Horses episode. I feel like Gary Oldman is one of the great character actors of the past 30 years or so. He has some beautiful performances of fictional and non-fictional characters. He rarely jumps into a role and just plays himself. So there's that. That's kind of the end point here. Mm-hmm. Okay, back to Jennifer Coolidge. I was criticized for that hot take and how similar things aren't said about an actor like Harrison Ford when he plays himself time and time again. Now, in this specific context, I want to be clear. I don't feel like the criticism was very well grounded. First, we didn't let anybody off the hook in The White Lotus. We talked about Jennifer Coolidge. I feel like she was the only person that deserved that criticism. And I think we really talked a lot about how the acting was one of the best things about that show. Like there was a lot of good actors. A lot of people really did their job well. Jennifer Coolidge was just not one of those people, and she just happens to be the name at the top of the pile because she won the Golden Globe. You know, she
several good female characters like Connie Britton, who plays different characers well.
Sydney Sweeney, Brittany O'Grady. There was lots of good female characters in both seasons. Those names are just the ones coming to mind. And I feel like the criticism is assuming if we did do an episode on a show starring Harrison Ford, we would either let him off the hook or maybe even end up praising him for his performance. Now, we can get to Harrison Ford in a few weeks because we're doing an episode on Shrinking.
Yeah.
And, we'll talk more about him then. But the question of why men are often praised or lauded for this type of performance, just playing themselves, and women are criticized for it, stuck in my craw a little bit. It was definitely a burr under my saddle. It stuck with me because I do want to be able to do that. In fact, I even said to the person, Harrison Ford has earned the right to do that. And I mostly stand by that. I really feel like there is a handful of actors and actresses, for that matter, that have cultivated a character, like a character that they play often, but it is their on-screen persona. It is something, it is a personality they have created. And when they are cast in a role, the person decided, the director, whoever, they want what they do. They want what Harrison Ford does. That cast Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise. They want what they do. You cast Cate Blanchett, Meryl Streep, Sally Field. They want what they do. These aren't character actors. These are leading men, leading women. So I mostly stand by the fact that there are people who have worked hard years and years and years and years cultivating a character that they can now play over and over. I think, though, that the point of women being criticized for that more than men, though, has some merit. I think there is a discussion there.
Yeah.
I want to let Good Show off the hook, though, because we did our episode on Terminal List and how Chris prated all over that. I mean, we criticized him. We've criticized John Dutton for Yellowstone, how basically just Kevin Costner, rather, for Yellowstone, and how he just made his voice gravelly and created John Dutton. So I feel like we have taken plenty of men to task for similar things.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily worried about Good Show as a whole. We've done our due diligence, I feel like, but broad strokes now. Why is it more acceptable, and why do those leading men get selected over, oftentimes, a great character actor like Gary Oldman, or, no one else is coming to mind, but character actors who really get lost in the character and in many ways end up being more gracious to the rest of the cast and to the story because they don't make it about themselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Brendan, we're out of time after that question you just asked there.
Listen, I didn't want to steal the
Thanks
spotlight.
for joining us this week on Good Show.
I had a lot to say. I wanted to make sure I was being fair to everyone. And,
yeah, sure.
You know what?
I do have several thoughts. Thoughts.
Get it out there. Let's go.
Number one thought. If we're going to have basically an opinion show on the internet that we post on the internet, we know that's not going to go well sometimes for people's feedback on what they think our opinion is.
Yeah.
And so you should be more like me and have alienated every one of your friends in your past so they don't talk to you anymore.
Can I say that, though? That's a good point. I feel like the criticism or the actual exchange itself isn't what bothered me. I think what it did do, though, was get me thinking, and
sure.
Raise some questions anyway. So go ahead.
My second thought is, yes, it's a fair point that for the specific example you gave, women are more criticized than men. as with almost everything in life, like, women just generally get criticized more than men. And it's always a fair point to bring up, which is what's difficult about this conversation. Point number 3, I thought was, I'm not sure I see the exact correlation here where I do see the correlation, which is that you got this feedback around the same time that we did the Slow Horses episode, and we just put out White Lotus recently. So, but Gary Oldman compared to Jennifer Coolidge is not a good comparison. No, because he's an exceptional character actor who does morph who he is in different scenarios. And I just can't get around the fact that I think it's a pretty fair claim to say Jennifer Coolidge, in what I've seen her in, plays roughly the same character most of the time. Yeah. And I still stand by what I said, because I feel like I have seen her in quite a few things. And I don't know that I would be able to keep my reputation if I named the things I've seen her in. But I think it would. I think I've seen her in 2 things, but Legally Blonde is one of them. Oh, I don't remember that. Yeah. Anyway, so American Pie is my other one. That's neither here nor there. I think, though, it comes down to, and this is unfortunate, I like what Harrison Ford does. I don't like what she does. Yeah. Yeah, you could say this. I think that's probably the bottom line, and that's now. The one difference I think might be, we're not comparing award winner to award winner, because really the only thing we took Jennifer Coolidge to task for was winning the award for that performance. And so if you wanted to say, in whatever, Harrison Ford shouldn't have won an Oscar in, I don't know, Raiders of the Lost Ark because he won. Because he was basically Han Solo. Yeah, because it was Han Solo in the jungle or whatever. That's a fair, but that's not, didn't happen, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, if Connie, I hadn't thought about this till now, if Connie Britton would have won the Golden Globe, yeah, maybe, but they picked out, I think the overriding point with Jennifer Coolidge was they picked out the one person that's in both seasons because they felt like maybe this show deserved some sort of award, and they gave out that award to her. And I just don't think it was for outstanding acting. Yeah. So I'm a little torn because I'm not insecure about the comment at all. I think it was a fair comment, and I just don't think, I'm not sure somebody who, I think there's a fair argument to be made that, like I said, in almost every situation, women are more criticized and overlooked than men are. And that's the same here. And we will let men off the hook more often than, when you say we, you just mean society. You really is what I'm trying to say. Society. Yeah. Now's the time. Pile on now, because I'm apparently taking us down. Get me on the way down. Yeah. So that's always a fair. So let's just pause for a second and think about what Slow Horses would have been like. Here's my connection. With Jennifer Coolidge in it? Absolutely not. But let's think about what Slow Horses would have been like with Tom Cruise as Jackson Lamb, or Tom Hanks, whoever. Sure. A male leading man. Sure. It loses steam for me, automatically thinking about that. Yeah, of course. This show is better because of character acting. Because Gary Oldman is playing an insanely well-crafted character. Yeah. He's not playing himself. No. Yeah. I would even say that doesn't exist. Gary Oldman, he's also not playing Commissioner Gordon. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think of Commissioner Gordon, you think of Sirius Black and Harry Potter. He did Churchill not that long ago. He does characters really, really, really well. Yep. And I think there are a lot of times when, if you're able to get kind of lost in the role and put the character in front of the actor, the story is stronger. I think that would be my only tie. I think sometimes if a story's thin,
if, I don't know, there's just not a lot there. They get a big name, they stick it in front. I mean, I don't want to keep kicking the Terminalists in the groin, but that's exactly what happened. It's not like a great story.
Yeah.
They put Chris Pratt in front and think this is going to do well because people love Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that's true of everything. In fact, you know, I feel like Harrison Ford often adds to whatever he's in. I feel like Tom Cruise often adds to whatever he's in a big way. But I think here, the story benefits from a character actor.
Yeah, no doubt.
Long way around to that point.
I think probably, I mean, it's an interesting question to compare Jennifer Coolidge and Tom Cruise, I guess, because Tom Cruise is the same thing in everything. Recently, at least. I think, you know, earlier on he was more diversified, but that's an interesting question. But also, when was the last time Tom Cruise won an award? He doesn't care about that.
He doesn't.
And I don't think that he doesn't deserve one for any of these. He makes very entertaining movies, but he doesn't. You couldn't give Tom Cruise. Well, I mean, you can't give him an Oscar for Top Gun. It's not, you know, that's not what this movie is. So I think the award part of it was the issue. It's like, this is the most outstanding acting performance you can name from that year. It's just, it seemed like not correct. And otherwise, other than that, we're just talking about what we prefer. And sure. I don't prefer Jennifer Coolidge's performance, which doesn't matter at all. And maybe you do, and that doesn't make me right or you wrong. It's the award aspect. And I also don't care about awards very much. So
neither do I.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to air that a little bit.
Yeah. Did I help?
I think we're starting to flesh the argument out there. I'm sure we left some stuff hanging, which, you know, it's fine.
Well, I guess I'm trying to admit that I'm admitting that the question that's called into calling us to task here is a fair question. Is this happen to women more often than men? Yeah, for sure. It's not even, there's nothing to talk about.
And that's really that's my deeper question. I think the question that's calling us to task, I feel like the best thing it did for me was get me, jogged a little bit in the head.
Yes. So
the deeper question, I didn't know if there was anything more to unpack there. I think we've exhausted it to some degree.
I'm happy to admit that that's probably the case, as long as I don't have to admit that Jennifer Coolidge did a good job in White Lotus.
No, she did not.
Unfortunately, this person who was advocating for Jennifer Coolidge just got 2 episodes worth now of us crapping on her performance.
Yep.
And I will continue to do so until we've all learned our lesson.
What's the lesson?
I don't know. We have to learn it.
The lesson is this is an opinion show.
That's right. That's correct.
So the story about screw ups, I don't know if there's anything else to add here because we did talk about this a little bit. A story about screw ups, I find in any form a little odd, just because most people prefer, I guess now I'm second guessing myself because I guess there is like a place for the bad news bears and, the underdog, the Rudies, but those aren't really the screw ups. Like think when we're talking totally, the spy, those are like the underdogs. This is like the rejects but this is like a spy story. People love the elite operator.
Yes.
But it ends up being very compelling. This story specifically, is there anything else to add about why something like this works? Maybe broadly and then here in Slow Horses.
Yeah. So I think, number one, first of all, you said, why does it work? And I think it's basically, we relate to those characters a little more than we do the smooth operator. We admire the smooth operator and that's great. And it's very entertaining to watch, but in this case, they maybe do spycraft more like how we would do spycraft in some cases. And in some cases, like Jackson Lamb's still the best, and he's not doing it like I would do it. And he's just a reject for a different reason. But we like non-perfect stories because we know nobody's perfect. So
I actually think, now that I'm thinking about this, the same principles apply with an underdog story, with Rudy, with Rocky. The same things apply. We relate more to underdogs. They're easier to root for. So I think we're seeing a lot of the same principles. It's just, we haven't really seen them in a spy setting. Yeah. It's really a fresh perspective, like I said before, on this.
Well, I also think we tend to really like, I tend to really like demons in people. And so when you have, you never really learn what's wrong necessarily with the MI5, the people in the main house of MI5, but each person here has some quirk or something wrong with them. And so even like the gambling addiction, like, there's a bit of redemption there in the sense that, like, well, just because I have a gambling addiction doesn't mean I'm not really good at something else.
Yep.
Like, no, that's not a good thing. Or with River, like, oh, I am maybe River's vices that he's too passionate, or something like that, too pure, and that's why he messed up that for initial training exercise. And so with him, it's just like, I can relate to all these demons that you have, and I have those too, and I could still be of use in a story like this.
Yeah. How does a story like this hit us after like a slew of, The Old Man, Jack Ryan, Terminal? How does this? I've said fresh perspective, but how did it hit you specifically?
I liked it. I like the take on there's a really good mixture of, there's a good mixture of several different things in this. So it was like, I really did not like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And I see how you could draw the comparison to this in that, but this is darker. It's more skeptical. It is, the demons are very present. It's not like a real buttoned up thing. And it's everybody kind of like stumbling into the right answer sometimes and not really being incredibly passionate about getting the work done, all these different things. It's just a very relatable story. And the spy thriller is still really fun. But it can get very boring. And this one tempted me with being boring at certain points, but it was not. It like powered through, sort of.
Yeah. And that's really how I wanted to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Was if you describe it to someone and you're like, spy thriller, but there's no punching, not a lot of shooting.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of chase scenes. It's more about spycraft, deception, subterfuge, drops and pickups. And how does this, I feel like we've really covered our bases here, but anything else to add? Why does this not put us to sleep?
Well, it is suspenseful, even though it's
very suspenseful. What is suspenseful though? You're
learning answers to things, like, well, who is doing this? Who's the culprit here?
So a little bit of a whodunit, like
some whodunit for sure.
Uncovering a little bit of a mystery also.
Yeah. And then there's always somebody in danger of some sort, like throughout the series. And so they're trying to slowly rescue them, sort of, that idea. And the ensemble allows you to hop back and forth between suspenseful moments that can drag on a whole lot longer because you only get a little piece of the story for 3 to 5 minutes. And then you move on to someone else's piece of the story that's also suspenseful. And then you move to this piece of the story that's also suspenseful, where if you just had the one and it carried through, it'd be like, this is suspenseful and now it's resolved and now it's very boring for a half hour. And when you can hop back and forth, that's really, really helpful. All these different things going on, but then they can also cross paths on their way there. Yeah.
All right, Anthony, is this a recommend? Is this a recommend with caveats? What do you?
I don't recommend with caveats, but I would say, like, you're going to I would say push through episode sort of 1 and 2 probably, and you'll see where you are. And once you cannot, I don't think, stop watching after like 10 minutes of episode 1.
Yeah.
But if you push through the first couple episodes, you're going to know what you've got. And at that point, you can just make a good decision about whether this is something you like or not, because it very well may not be something that you like. If you like action, this is not an incredibly action filled. And if you like, it's a different kind of comedy. So it's not a comedy at all. Sorry. It's different kind of humor is what I meant to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, but you'll see what you have after 2 episodes. But I will say it's worth noting that season 2, I think, is far better than season 1.
This is another one, and I can't remember what we said this about, but this is not a watch while you work type show. You have to pay attention. There's a lot going on, and it's good stuff. And I think if you do pay attention, you don't try to busy your mind while you're watching. I think you'll benefit from that. This is for someone, I think, who likes maybe a little bit more of a dense story and is okay wading into the tall grass a little bit with a Cold War style spy thriller. I think hopefully that doesn't turn everyone off here at the end, but I think it is heavy on the story, heavy on the dialogue. Like you said, it's not action packed, but it is a really, really compelling, really well done spy thriller. So I think it's definitely a recommend from me. Well, Anthony, what have you been watching this week?
Yeah, so I got some new stuff. The first thing we both apparently watched, we didn't know we both watched it, but we both apparently watched it. So maybe a small, because I also don't think we're going to do an episode on it. Obviously, it's not that kind of a show. So maybe we could have a small discussion about it now, so I don't take all your thunder here.
Yeah.
I checked out The Reluctant Traveler, which is Eugene Levy on Apple TV Plus. My initial thoughts are it's beautiful. Shot so well. The places, it's really an advertisement. I mean, to some extent, I kept thinking like, this is a perfect commercial I want to go everywhere he goes. Obviously, he's got his good little, quips, and he's funny, and so that's nice to have. And so it's a different take on a travel show, which is nice. But also, I do think. I've only watched 2 so far. In the 2 I've watched, they're leaning a little too hard on his reluctance, which is fine. That's what the show's called. But I'll give you an example. So like I'm going to Costa Rica later this year, and he has an episode where he goes to Costa Rica, and they spend a really long time talking about all of his fears in Costa Rica. I'm like, that doesn't help me very much.
Yeah.
Like all the things that could go wrong in Costa Rica.
Is there a lot of things? I've only seen one episode.
Oh, no. There's not a lot of things. There's snakes in Costa Rica, and I don't love snakes. There's also, what else was it? Oh, poisonous spiders in Costa Rica. And there's, I forget what else, but it was just like, he was going through all of his fears, and I'm just like, you don't need to be hitting me with all that stuff. But,
that's fine.
But it's a nice little show. What are your thoughts on that show?
Yeah. I love Eugene Levy.
Me too.
I could watch this man darn socks. I mean, he is engaging. He's super engaging. I'm really into the show. I think it's really good. You know that he was almost Toby Ziegler, right?
Yeah.
So for the longest time, you know who Judd Hirsch is, don't you?
Yep.
Okay. For the longest time, I knew there was someone who was almost Toby Ziegler. I thought it was Judd Hirsch.
Oh.
But more recently anyway, this is an aside.
Yeah.
But I learned it was Eugene Levy, and I think he's really funny. I think
you would have been a poor choice for that show.
It would have been a different show.
Yeah.
Completely. I think I like the premise. I like the idea that he's like, I don't know that I'm going to be doing that.
He is like you traveling around.
Probably. So. Yeah. I think that's maybe why that doesn't seem like something I'd want to
stay here.
Yeah. It's toasty in the cabin. But I really enjoy. I've seen the one episode. It was the one where he went to Finland, and he was like, really good, reindeer, huh? That looks tasty. And that's one of the things I'm actually probably more adventurous on, is like trying new things. But yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of the show. It's good.
All right, cool. My second thing, well, let me say a couple quick things. Checked out Full Swing, which you mentioned in our last episode. Watched the whole thing. I loved it. It was really, really good. But for all the reasons that you said last time, it's definitely worth checking out. And if you followed, like now that I understand a little bit more, if you followed the whole Live Golf thing last year with the battle and all this stuff, I got the impression that since I don't know if you knew all the stuff that was going on last year, I actually got a little bit of the impression that this was sort of a propaganda from PGA, because they really make the Live golfers look bad, and they really make the PGA golfers look good. But generally speaking, I like the PGA golfers anyway more than I already thought the Live golfers looked bad. So that's fine. I agreed with everything Full Swing did, but it did feel a little bit weird at certain points where it's just like, well, you're just trying to make them look bad. Still, it's awesome, just like the rest of these. I also watched season 2 of Make It or Break It, which is the surfing show, which is
that's Apple TV Plus, right?
Yep, Apple TV Plus. That's just like Full Swing, and nice. It's season 2 is great. Definitely, you should pick that show up for sure, pretty fast. I'm current on Hello Tomorrow, which is there's another episode since the last time I talked about it. It's getting more interesting, sort of, and so I'm still sticking with it. And then
it has a Twilight Zone feel.
Did you check it out?
I saw the first.
It does have a Twilight
ad I've ever seen for it.
Oh, okay.
It's like it has like a 50s sitcom feel, but it's like the only thing I can think of right now, which is not a great example, is like WandaVision, how everything's a little weird.
Yep. Yeah.
It's not quite nothing's quite right. Like you can't put your finger on it. Anyway, it looks good though. It looks funny.
Yeah. There's nothing about the Twilight Zone in it, but you're exactly right about the feel.
Yeah.
I mean, there's at least at this point, there's no Twilight Zone element to it, like story wise. But it's maybe worth checking out. I thought it was worth mentioning, since I talk about soccer so much, the MLS streaming service launched. The first game was last week, this last Saturday, the first set of games. And it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool universe. And so if you want to watch any MLS, you have to go to Apple TV to watch it. Sometimes you have to subscribe. Okay. About half the games last Saturday were free. But in order to kind of watch this season, you'll eventually have to subscribe, unless you're a season ticket member like I am and you get it for free.
Okay, that was my question. Yeah. I just was under the assumption that you pay for Apple TV Plus.
I know. Yeah.
So it's like called Season Pass, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And now, are there always going to be some free games, or are they just having some?
There will always be some free games.
Okay.
Yeah, every week, but they're going to rotate which teams are free.
That's better than MLB.
Yeah,
for sure.
And there's going to be a lot of free games early on. They'll try to get you hooked, and then so we'll see what happens. I mean, but
any idea what the season pass costs? It wasn't.
No.
It didn't seem like it was a lot.
I think it's like, I don't know.
I thought I saw it. It didn't seem like it was a lot.
It wasn't a ton, but also they had some really weird, there's a lot about it that's really good. And they had some really weird technical issues, like during the first.
Oh, that stuff for sure, though, would be. I'm sure that would happen,
Yeah, but there was a dude like during the very first initial broadcast of the pregame show for the first set of games. There's just a dude for way too long, probably 2 minutes straight, where he's like, check, 1, 2, check over the people. He's checking a microphone. It was so like rudimentary. It was funny.
Oh, that is awesome.
Okay, finally, the thing I watched. I checked out The Consultant on Prime Video, which is, oh my gosh, how did I just blank on his name? What's his name?
Christoph Waltz.
Christoph Waltz. And the girl from White Lotus and
Brittany O'Grady. Yeah.
Yes, she's a very main character in this show. I have no idea what's going on. I'm 3 episodes in, and I have no idea what's going on. I'm not sure I enjoy it very much. At this point, I'm going to continue watching until at least I understand what the premise of the show is. But also, like, Leah came in and I was watching like episode 3. She was like, "How is it?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I don't know what's going on. I can't tell what's going on." She was like, "How far are you in?" And I was like, 3 episodes. I'm 3 episodes in, and I still kind of have no idea what's going on.
I think it is literally their answer to Succession. I think it is.
It's nothing like Succession, at least yet.
I'll have to watch it, but the fact that they're labeling it a black comedy,
I don't see any black comedy either. It's crazy. I believe you that
they think they made a black comedy. I think that's my point. They think they made one. So whether it is or isn't funny, I mean,
yeah,
they're under the impression they made a black comedy to compete with The White Lotus and Succession, I think.
It's not anything like those. And it's not, that's just making me like it less because it's not doing that. Yeah. But anyway, I don't like, there's a bit of a theme with like, I do not care for shock value stuff. And this show starts on a shock value thing. There's a couple shock value things and I just don't like you replacing narrative with shock value, like capturing my attention with something shocking, rather than writing a good narrative. Yeah. And this is based on a novel of some sort, but so I'm not making a comment on the novel, but we'll see. I'll keep you updated, I guess. That's it for me.
So first of all, I'm current on Shrinking, current on The Last of Us, current on Poker Face. Did you watch Poker Face yet?
I have not watched the most recent yet. No.
It's different. It's unique. It's
cool.
I thought it was pretty cool. It's unlike some of the other ones. So I'm all caught up on those. I started watching Luther again. Mm-hmm. Luther stars Idris Elba. It's a dark crime drama from the BBC. It's on Netflix for a while. There's going to be a new made for Netflix movie. So I wanted to do a little refresher, kind of just to pass the time. But Luther is just not a show you pass the time with. It's rough. So, but it's good. It's really good. I mean, it would remind you a little bit of Sherlock in some places, although I think Sherlock has a little more lightheartedness to it. Anyway, brand new season of Drive to Survive just came out, I think like past couple days.
Last Friday, I think, yeah.
Holy cow.
I haven't watched any of it.
I forgot how hard it was, like, just to breathe while this show, there was one of the funniest things that has been said so far. Toto, the principal from Mercedes, they were like, "Hey, are you ready for this documentary?" And he was like, "What you guys do here is closer to Top Gun than a documentary." And I was like, "That's exactly right." I mean, like that, it really caught me the right way because Drive to Survive is they're telling us their story. Netflix is telling their version of the events. And it's really compelling though. Like it's awesome. And I think it really has created this whole, especially in America, this whole new group of fans for Formula One.
No doubt. Yeah.
So I think that's everything for me.
Nice. We should do an episode of all these.
That's what I was. Yeah.
Sports docu, whatever. Yeah. And like do some like take one for like 10 minutes and another one for 10 minutes because we're not going to do a full episode on any of them, but we love all of them. So that's
I think that'd be a great idea.
That does it for this episode of Good Show. Good Show is created, recorded, edited, and produced by Anthony Mako and Brandon Sharp. Our theme music was written and recorded by me, Anthony, and all our graphics and socials are developed by Brandon. If you've enjoyed your time with us, please make sure to like or follow us on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you appreciate our show, please throw us a rating and a review there too. If you'd like to discuss any of our content, you can search the Good Show Facebook group or follow us on Instagram at The Good Show Podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.